Discover the miraculous acts of faith, 12 transforming stories that reveal God's incredible plan. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, the land of Egypt lay heavy under the weight of despair. The cries of the Israelites echoed through the darkened streets, their voices a chorus of anguish and longing for freedom. Each dawn met the same sorrowful sight, the brick kilns, where sweat mingled with the dust of labor, and hope flickered like a dying ember. Among the multitude stood Moses, a man shaped by his past, once a prince of Egypt, now a lowly shepherd, burdened by the divine call that thrummed within him. But who was he to lead a fractured people? The shadows of doubt threatened to envelop him as he gazed at his brethren in toil, their spirits crushed beneath Pharaoh's iron grip. How could he, Moses, the fugitive, bear the weight of their deliverance? Then, in the rugged hills of Midian, the air crackled with divine electricity. It was there that Moses encountered the burning bush, flames licking the air yet never consuming the wood. The voice of Yahweh shattered the silence, stirring the earth beneath his feet. Moses, I have heard the cries of my people. Return to Egypt. But who am I that I should go to Pharaoh? He protested, the doubt gnawing within him like a relentless beast. The Lord assured him, I will be with you. And despite the promise, Moses trembled, lost in insecurities and fears clouding his vision of the Almighty who called him. Shift the scene to Pharaoh's south opulent court, where power reigned but wisdom fled. The ruler, surrounded by advisors and sorcerers, remained blind to the unfolding chaos as each disobedience to God's command brought calamity upon his realm. Water turned to blood, swarms of locusts blanketed the skies, and darkness shrouded the land. Through it all, Moses remained resolute, the face of unwavering faith, even as the suffering intensified, encircling the hearts of both his people and the Egyptians. Yet upon witnessing the miracles, the Israelites, though bound in chains, began to stir with a flicker of hope. With each sign God performed through Moses, their faith intertwined, forging a united front against despair. As the night of Passover beckoned, the sacred commandments echoed in their ears, each family to take a lamb, its blood a red seal of covenant protection marking their doorposts. Yet the night grew thick with uncertainty. Trembling hearts awaited the specter of death to sweep across Egypt, trusting in a promise cloaked in fear. With the final plague, the weight of Pharaoh's hardened heart struck against divine justice, a precursor to liberation. The Israelites, eyes wide with astonishment, beheld the Red Sea part, their path to freedom illuminated, and so began their journey into the wilderness. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As the Israelites crossed, they found not merely freedom but a path through the unknown, a wilderness teeming with trials and revelations. The bitter waters tested their faith, and yet, as they traversed the desert, they witnessed manna falling like divine grace from above, nourishing their weary souls and disclosing God's unwavering provision. But beneath the surface lay a chilling uncertainty. With every miracle came new challenges. The question of survival hung in the arid air. Would their trust in the promises of old endure as the desert tested their resolve? As the echoes of God's incredible plan began to resound in their hearts, the stage was set for a divine adventure that would reverberate throughout eternity. As the Israelites journeyed deeper into the wilderness, their hearts were a tapestry woven with hope and fear. They followed the presence of the Lord manifested as a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. Yet, as days turned into weeks, murmurs of dissatisfaction began to rise among them, echoing through the camp. "What shall we drink?" they cried, their voices laced with desperation as their throats grew parched under the relentless sun. They remembered the fleshpots of Egypt, where they feasted, their bellies full, and longed for the comfort of their captors. In their discontent, they forgot the hand that had delivered them from bondage, the one who had parted the sea to grant them passage. Moses, worn by the burden of leadership, sought the Lord. "What shall I do with this people?" he pleaded, for the weight of their doubts bore heavily upon his heart. The Lord answered him, "Go before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel. I will stand there before you by the rock at Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." Exodus 17 verses 5-6. Obediently, Moses gathered the leaders and took his staff, the staff that had turned the Nile to blood, and called forth plagues and struck the rock as directed. With a demand as fierce as the desert's heat, the rock burst forth, and torrents of refreshing water flowed, quenching the thirst of the multitude. The Israelites marveled at God's faithfulness, their doubts momentarily washed away, yet in the distance, the sound of warriors gathering grew ominous. The Amalekites launched a treacherous attack against the weary Israelites, seeking to crush their spirit while they were still fragile. Moses summoned Joshua, appointing him leader of their defense. "Choose some of our men and go out to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands." Exodus 17 verse 9. The following day, as the sun climbed high, the battle began. From the hilltop, Moses raised the staff toward heaven, and while his hands remained lifted, the Israelites prevailed. But as fatigue took hold, his arms grew heavy, and with them, the tide of battle shifted. Seeing this, Aaron and Hur came alongside him, supporting his weary arms, holding them steady until the set of sun signified the victory of God's chosen people over their foes. When the dust settled, Moses erected an altar, calling it "The Lord is my banner," proclaiming, "For hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord." Exodus 17 verse 15. The Israelites witnessed the reality of God's protection and power, an inspiration that would embolden them for the challenges ahead. As they moved forward, nourished by the miraculous water and shelter of divine presence, whispers of promise resounded deeper. The covenant established through trials revealed a truth engraved into the heart of their journey: God did not merely deliver them from Egypt, He was leading them to a land flowing with milk and honey. Yet what lay ahead was a sacred purpose intertwined with greater testing, a path that would compel them to trust and obey, to seek God's will above their own. As each trial unveiled more of God's sovereign plan, the question hung in the air: what would it take for them to grasp the fullness of His promises? For the journey was just beginning, and the unfolding of God's incredible faithfulness would soon illuminate a path filled with trials meant to forge their identity as His people. As the Israelites continued their passage, a new trial awaited them in the barren wilderness. Their journey, which had begun with fervor and faith, was soon met with a rising tide of complaints against Moses and Aaron. "If only we had died in the land of Egypt," they lamented. "Why have you brought us out here to die in this wilderness? There is no bread, and there is no water, and we loathe this worthless food." Numbers 21:5. Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before the Lord, seeking His counsel amidst the rising discontent. The Lord heard their cries and said, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them whether they will walk in my law or not." Exodus 16 verse 4. In the early morning light, the Israelites awoke to witness a miracle. A fine, flaky substance lay across the ground, shimmering like dew as the sun began to rise. Their eyes widened in awe and wonder as they inquired, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses explained to them, "It is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat." Exodus 16 verse 15. The people were instructed to gather what they needed for each day. A double portion should be taken on the sixth day, in preparation for the Sabbath. They marveled at this divine provision. Yet, even in the midst of such miraculous sustenance, there lingered doubt. Some disregarded Moses' command, gathering more than was needed, only to find the excess had rotted by morning. "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and my laws?" The Lord lamented. Exodus 16 verse 28. Yet another trial arose as they camped at Rephidim. The people grew thirsty once more. Their cries echoed through the encampment, desperation tinging their voices. "Why did you bring us out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" Exodus 17 verse 3. The hearts of the Israelites were hardened, yet the compassion of the Lord remained steadfast. Moses, bewildered by their persistent complaints, turned to God. "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me." Exodus 17 verse 4. The Lord commanded, "Go on before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it." Exodus 17 verses 5-6. Moses complied, striking the rock once more. The life-giving waters burst forth, a testament to God's unwavering provision. And even then, in the wake of such grace, they murmured and questioned their fate. Conflicts arose with the people around them. The Amalekites re-emerged, a persistent foe. The Lord instructed Moses, "Write this as a memorial in a book and recite it in the ears of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the memory of Amalek from under heaven." Exodus 17 verse 14. The Israelites, bolstered by the victories the Lord had given them over their enemies, began to understand the nature of their God not just as a deliverer but also as a protector and provider. The tension of faith and doubt grappled within them as they journeyed forth, transforming their character and shaping their destiny. In all these things, the question once again hung in the air, a divine mystery yet to be fully understood: how would they learn to trust in the might of Yahweh amidst uncertainty? For what awaited them was yet another unfolding of God's sovereign plan, deeper and richer than their present trials could reveal. As the Israelites moved forward, the shadow of doubt lingered, hovering like a cloud over their encampment. They had witnessed the outpouring of God's favor in the form of bread from heaven, and yet, the thoughts of their hearts often strayed to the comforts left behind in Egypt. The bitterness of former bondage clouded their perception, and they longed for the delicacies they had once savored. "We remember the fish we ate in Egypt, the cucumbers, and the melons." Their voices cried out once more in the dry desert air, Numbers 11:5. Moses, weary from their ceaseless murmurings, sought the face of the Lord again. "I am not able to bear all this people alone, the burden is too heavy for me." Numbers 11:14, he lamented. In a moment of divine intervention, the Lord revealed his plan. He instructed Moses to gather 70 men from among the elders of Israel. "I will take some of the Spirit that is upon you and put it upon them, and they shall bear the burden of the people with you." Numbers 11:17. Moses obeyed, and as they stood together before the meeting tent, the Spirit of God descended, resting upon the chosen elders. They prophesied, their voices ringing with newfound authority, a mighty echo of divine empowerment. Yet among them stood Eldad and Medad, who had remained in the camp. To their astonishment, they too were filled with the Spirit, and prophesied within the camp. A young man rushed to Moses, distressed, and exclaimed, "Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp." Numbers 11:28. Joshua, full of zeal for Moses, said, "My Lord, restrain them." But Moses, filled with humility and wisdom, replied, "Are you jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord would put his Spirit upon them." Numbers 11:29. The people's discontent rippled through the camp, and with it came a hunger that could not be satisfied by heavenly bread alone. "We want meat." They clamored, their hearts entangled in craving and nostalgia for what they once had. Their pleas reached the ears of the Lord, who swore to provide for them, though a stern warning accompanied his promise. "You shall eat, not 1 day, nor 2 days, nor 5 days, nor 10 days, nor 20 days, but a whole month, until it comes out at your nostrils." Numbers 11:19-20. And so it came to pass that God sent quail to the camp in abundance, yet in their very fulfillment of desire, warning echoes lingered in the wind. As the people stuffed themselves with the flesh of birds, the fierceness of God's anger was kindled against them. His mercies had turned to discipline, and as they feasted, a plague struck among them. The place was named Kibroth Hattaavah, which means the graves of craving, for there they buried those who lusted greedily. Numbers 11:34. In the aftermath of their gluttony, the daunting realization sunk in God's provisions were not merely to satisfy their flesh but to cultivate their spirit. The journey through the wilderness was not solely about reaching a land of milk and honey, it was a divine metamorphosis, where their trust in Yahweh must deepen. Yet, amid the tumult of their desires and the heavy consequence of their actions, a glimmer of hope emerged. For as they pressed onward, the Lord spoke through the prophets, reminding them of their covenant. "The Lord your God is in your midst, a mighty one who will save." Zephaniah 3 verse 17. The question thus arose amongst them, would they continue to grumble, or could they instead trust in the God who provided even through adversity? What awaited them was a greater revelation of God's character, one that would transform not just their circumstances but their very hearts. Would they embrace the fullness of His plan, even when the path was obscured by their very own struggles? For deep within the unfolding wilderness tale lay the promise of a deliverance yet unseen, drawing ever closer to the fulfillment of His sovereign design, as they journeyed toward the land promised to their forefathers. As the Israelites continued their progression through the parched wilderness, the air was heavy with tension and the weight of consequence. They had witnessed the might of God in their liberation and tasted His provision, yet their hearts teetered dangerously close to disbelief. Their journey wasn't merely a physical exodus, it was an impending trial infused with divine purpose. In that moment of unrest, as night fell and the barren land lay still, Moses heeded the call of their distress. He turned to the Lord, his heart aching for His people. "What shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me," he cried, bold yet trembling before the Almighty. Numbers 14:10. The Lord answered Moses, "How long will this people despise me? And how long will they not believe in me, in spite of all the signs that I have done among them?" Numbers 14:11. God's tone was just, yet laced with sorrow. He declared, "I will strike them with pestilence and disinherit them, and I will make of you a nation greater and mightier than they." Numbers 14:12. But Moses understood that such an act would only serve to magnify the name of God among the nations. "Then the Egyptians will hear it, for you brought up this people by your might from among them." Numbers 14:13. Moses appealed for mercy, highlighting the faithfulness of the Lord. "Forgive the iniquity of this people, according to the greatness of your steadfast love, just as you have forgiven this people, from Egypt until now." Numbers 14:19. God, ever faithful to His covenant, relented from destruction but pronounced the consequence of their doubt. "But truly, as I live, and as all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, none of the men who have seen my glory and my signs shall see the land that I swore to give to their fathers." Numbers 14:21-23. This judgment reverberated through the encampment like thunder, casting a shadow over their hopes and dreams. The Israelites stood frozen in disbelief, the reality of their rejection looming over them. In that stark moment, the gravity of their choices unfurled decision and consequence intertwined like a delicate tapestry, yet amid despair, the seeds of hope began to sprout. For from the ashes of dissolution, Caleb and Joshua arose, steadfast and courageous. Together they attempted to quell the fears of the people. "The land which we passed through to spy it out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, He will bring us into this land and give it to us." Numbers 14:7-8. Their voices resonated with the promise of the Almighty, urging the weary and disheartened to cling to faith. The murmurs in the camp swelled again, now a mixture of anger and despair. "Let us choose a leader and go back to Egypt," they lamented. Numbers 14:4. But God's Spirit, unyielding amid chaos, continued to work among those who would listen. He reminded them that His plans were greater than their current understanding, for He was orchestrating a future beyond their sight. At this critical juncture, as the hearts of the majority began to spiral towards rebellion, the truth hung in the air. What path would they choose? Would they align with the fears of the multitude, or hold on to the promises of Yahweh? Would they trust in the One who had shattered the chains of oppression, or would they turn back to the very shackles they had prayed for deliverance from? For in the wilderness, a new revelation awaited them, a testament of grace and sovereignty that would forge their identity as a people set apart. And as their journey continued, the sacred narrative unfolded with divine intention, leaving the promise of a greater hope teetering just beyond the horizon. What awaited was not merely the land of Canaan but the unveiling of a deeper relationship with the living God, for His ways would lead them to a destiny beyond what they could fathom. The story was only beginning, and in their struggle lay the promise of a greater triumph yet to emerge. As dawn broke over the parched wilderness, the sun cast its first rays of light upon the camp of the Israelites. Yet, darkness still lingered within their hearts, thick with doubt and despair. Moses stood resolute, imploring the Lord anew, "O Lord, let your greatness be shown in the midst of this people, show them your power and mercy once more." His prayer rose like incense to the heavens, a plea not merely for sustenance but for the restoration of their faith. The Lord spoke with a voice that thundered across the expanse of the desert, "I have heard your plea, Moses, and I shall do as you have asked. I will reveal my glory before the eyes of this stubborn people." His promise danced on the winds, yet the tension weighed heavy as the Israelites awaited their fate. Braced between judgment and mercy, God commanded Moses to gather the people at the entrance of the tent of meeting. "Consecrate yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you," Moses proclaimed, Joshua 3 verse 5. Fear and anticipation mingled within the crowd, their gazes fixed upon the sacred tent where the presence of the Most High dwelt. As they gathered, whispers of doubt rippled anew among them. What if our plight is beyond salvation? What if he has abandoned us forever? Moses, sensing the murmuring swell, raised his voice to silence the fear. "Stand firm and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today," Exodus 14 verse 13. At that moment, the cloud of the Lord's glory descended like fire upon the tent, illuminating the way forward, while casting shadows on the hearts of the skeptical. In that sacred space, God declared his intentions once more. "I will send a provision of bread from heaven to sustain you, and your thirst shall be quenched from the rock," he vowed, Exodus 16 verse 4, Exodus 17 verse 6. The Israelites gasped, hearts pounding, for they remembered the stories passed down from their forefathers, tales of divine providence that unfurled before them. Yet, their confidence wavered. Would God truly feed them in this desolate place? Caleb and Joshua interjected, "Be strong and courageous. The Lord will fight for us. There is no mountain too high nor valley too low that he cannot traverse." The two men stood as pillars of faith amidst a wavering congregation, emboldening their brothers and sisters to cast aside doubt and embrace the promises of the Lord. Weeks passed in the wilderness. Each day, the heavens poured down manna, soft as the dew yet nourishing, a sign of divine provision. Still, each meal was met with hearts divided. "What is this?" they grumbled, "this wretched bread?" Exodus 16 verse 15. The bitterness of craving filled them, overshadowing the sweet gift of sustenance that God provided. Meanwhile, Moses sought counsel from the Lord, pleading for understanding. God declared, "Tell my people I will prove them. I will test their hearts to see if they will walk in my ways," Exodus 16 verse 4. Thus, the trial would forge a bond deeper than mere survival. It was to be a relationship defined by trust and reliance on his faithful hand. In the weeks that followed, as they gathered the miraculous bread from the earth, God's wisdom unfurled like a tapestry. Each piece drawn forth was a lesson in dependence on the Almighty. But as they feasted, a provocation of the heart arose. Slowly, doubt twisted the truth, and some yearned for the fleshpots of Egypt. At least we had food there. Yet, in that desolate land of learning, the heart of God throbbed with affection for his people. "Though you falter, I will not forsake you," he whispered through Moses. A promise flickered like a flame hidden beneath their weariness, a truth unchanging. His plans surpassed their every fear, and glory awaited them in the land flowing with milk and honey. And in that moment, as clouds gathered and bread fell from heaven, the stage was set for a greater unveiling. Their journey was but the beginning, for a covenant of grace awaited to transform them into a mighty nation, known not just for their exodus from Egypt, but for their journey of faith toward a promised destiny. Thus, the saga spiraled into the unknown, as God's sovereign design began to capture the longing of their souls, revealing that his greatest acts were yet to come. As the sun set and shadows stretched across the encampment, the Israelites gathered in murmurs, every heart a tapestry of doubt and yearning. The air was thick with expectancy, as the promise of divine wonders lingered like the sweet scent of the early fruit. Moses, feeling the weight of their trepidation, stood firm among them. "Behold, the Lord has promised to show himself strong," he declared, with a resolve that cut through the evening stillness. The night cloaked the camp in a hush, but soon it was pierced by the rustle of the wind. Suddenly, from the heart of the darkness, came a blazing light, a pillar of fire that danced in the firmament. The Israelites gasped in awe, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and reverence. It was the presence of the Almighty, revealing his glory as a beacon of hope. As it illuminated their surroundings, the doubts in their hearts began to melt away like the morning dew under the rising sun. Moses ascended the foothill of Mount Sinai, the very mountain that trembled with the weight of God's promise. He climbed higher, drawn by the Lord's call, and there, in the thick cloud, the voice of God beckoned to him. "Moses, I will give you commandments that will guide my people and establish you as a holy nation," the Lord spoke. "Tell them to prepare their hearts, for I shall write my law upon the tablets of stone." Moses' heart soared, yet it trembled also. He longed for the people to understand the significance of the covenant that was to emerge from this encounter. With heavy steps, he made his descent, returning to the people with a countenance that reflected the glory of God. "Consecrate yourselves, for the Lord shall speak," he urged. The Israelites prepared themselves, washing their garments and setting boundaries around the mountain, for they were to meet the living God. On the third day, as thunder roared and lightning danced across the sky, the sound of a trumpet echoed like the cry of an advancing army. The people trembled, their faith challenged by the magnitude of his presence. Yet amidst their fear, God's voice thundered, declaring his law, "You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a carved image." Exodus 20 verses 3-4. With each command, the Israelites' hearts beat in unison, the words etched in their minds and souls. They marveled, for in this moment, the Almighty was forging their identity as his chosen people, a nation set apart. "All that the Lord has spoken, we will do," they proclaimed together, their voices rising as a testament to renewed faith. Moses returned to the mountain, this time bearing the gifts of God, the tablets inscribed with his commandments. But as he descended, he heard a great noise, a cacophony that stirred his heart to alarm. The people, in their impatience and doubt, had fashioned a golden calf, crying out, "These are your gods, O Israel." Exodus 32 verse 4. Moses, witnessing the betrayal of the covenant, felt a sharp pain pierce his heart. He hurled the tablets to the ground, shattering them in his grief. Yet in that moment of fracture, the heart of God remained steadfast, whispering hope amidst the chaos. "Return to me with all your heart," he beckoned, "for I am a God of mercy." Joel 2 verse 12, as Moses fell prostrate before the Lord, pleading for their forgiveness, he turned to the people again with words of intercession. "If you will forgive their sin, blot me out of your book," he cried. In this trial, a deeper understanding unfurled within him, revealing the nature of grace unearned, yet freely given. God responded with a promise of mercy, and as Moses ascended the mountain once more, the revelation of the divine plan began to unfold. There was a covenant that would not only redeem them but set the course for generations to come. The vision of a Messiah, a hope beyond their wilderness journey, flickered in the distance, promising restoration, a nation transformed through trials into one that would manifest God's glory in the world. And so, as Moses sought the face of God, the fear of the people lingered, but the hope of his promise stirred in their hearts. The journey was far from over. God's wondrous acts would unveil a tapestry of redemption not only for Israel but for all mankind, whispering a secret that would echo through time. "I am about to do a new thing, do you not perceive it?" Isaiah 43 verse 19. As Moses stood upon the heights of Sinai, the presence of the Lord enveloped him, a thick cloud of glory, and the air trembled with divine majesty. The voice of God resounded, shaking the mountains and echoing through the valleys. "Gather the people once more, that I may speak to them, and let them hear my words anew," the Lord commanded. Moses' heart was aflame with purpose as he descended, his feet firm upon the rugged terrain. The people waited with bated breath, their eyes searching for the man of God, sensing the atmosphere thick with divine anticipation. "Children of Israel," Moses began, his voice steady, "the Lord your God has renewed his covenant with you. Prepare your hearts and receive his truth." As he spoke, a hush fell upon the camp, a palpable calm surrendering to the Lord's overwhelming presence. The Israelites leaned closer, hearts pounding, for they understood that they stood before the very majesty who had rescued them from Egypt. "Hear, O Israel," Moses continued, lifting his hands toward heaven, "the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might." Deuteronomy 6 verses 4-5. In that moment, the heavens opened, and a flash of lightning illuminated the countenance of Moses, as the words of God poured forth like a rushing stream. You shall teach these things diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. Deuteronomy 6 verse 7, the Israelites nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of their responsibility. Each command resonated as a heartbeat of their collective identity, binding them to the God who had called them forth. Despite their previous transgressions, hope blossomed anew as Moses continued, "And I shall give to you not just commands, but a heart to follow them, that you may be holy as I am holy." Leviticus 11 verse 44, yet the enormity of their betrayal lingered between them, the golden calf, a stark reminder of their frailty. Uncertainty began to flicker once more in the hearts of the people. Will the Lord dwell among us despite our failures? They whispered amongst themselves, fear clawing at their resolve. Moses, perceiving their disquiet, raised his voice, "The Lord goes before you, he will fight for you against your enemies. Be not afraid. Do not let your heart melt, for his grace is sufficient, and his mercy abounds." Deuteronomy 20 verse 4, suddenly, the ground shook beneath them, and a strange silence fell upon the camp as they looked up, wide-eyed. The heavens blazed with brilliant light, and in that light, the people saw a vision, a representation of the future, a figure cloaked in righteousness who would bear their sin and usher in a new covenant. "I will not abandon you," the Lord's voice spoke to their hearts. "Behold, I do a new thing. A promise stands, a new covenant marked by blood that shall seal your redemption." As Moses gazed upward, his heart intertwined with the prophetic revelation, he understood that this was only the beginning. Trials awaited them, yet greater was the glory that would be revealed through their obedience and faithfulness, and so the people, now renewed and fortified by the covenant, responded with shouts of praise, "The Lord is our God. We will follow him." They stood united, holding fast to the words spoken through Moses and embracing the promise of their future. In the stillness that followed, the air hung heavy with anticipation as the voice of the God of Israel rang out once more. "A day will come when I will write my law not on tablets of stone, but on the hearts of my people. A day of fulfillment is coming, and I shall be their God, and they shall be my people." Thus began the journey of discovery. Each step taken on the path of obedience would echo through time, weaving a narrative of faith, love, and restoration that would call the whole world unto himself. But what they did not know about God's unfolding plan would change everything, the whispers of the divine promised, igniting a fire of faith that awaited their deliverance. As the echoes of their praises lingered in the stillness, a divine stillness enveloped the camp of Israel, thick and heavy with the presence of the Almighty. Moses stood in reverent silence, his heart stirred by the revelation of God's purpose for his people. The weight of the covenant pressed upon him, an urgency calling forth commitment and remembrance. The people, feeling emboldened, turned to one another. "What shall we do?" Some murmured, their hearts ignited, the momentum of faith beginning to surge through the congregation. The elders among them, wise in the ways of the Lord, commanded the assembly, "Let us gather the elders together and seek the Lord's face in prayer and supplication. We must prepare ourselves for the journey ahead." Moses watched as the groups formed, leaders of tribes and families kneeling on the ground, their hands lifted in humble acknowledgement of the God who had brought them forth from bondage. Moses joined them, offering his heart, pleading for the guidance of the Lord. "O Lord," he cried out, "show us the way that we should go, that we may walk in your truth and not be led astray." In response, the air quivered again, and the voice of God thundered from the mountain, "Ye shall be a holy people to me. Gather your offerings, and I will dwell among you." As the people heeded the Lord's decree, provisions began to flow, gold, silver, and precious fabric from the bounty of their past enslavement. Days turned into weeks, and soon the site of the tabernacle began to emerge from the heart of the camp, a sanctuary for the Most High, designed according to God's command. Its walls adorned with vibrant colors, symbols of the splendor of heaven, and the altar completed, ready to receive the sacrifices that spoke of repentance and love. Within the Lord's south dwelling place, Moses often sought the face of God. In private conversation, the divine whispered of his plans, laying bare the mysteries of the coming fulfillment. "A prophet like you," God declared, "will I raise up from among your brethren. He shall speak my words, and whoever does not heed his command shall answer to me." Moses felt the gravity of this pronouncement. The burden of generations hung in the balance, waiting for the fulfillment of promises long foretold. The people were unaware just how pivotal their faith would be in the unfolding of God's redemption plan, yet shadows loomed as Israel faced uncertainty once again. Distant whispers of the Amalekites reached their ears, sowing discord and fear. "Will we stand firm against such foes?" they would murmur, casting apprehensive glances toward the horizon. Moses, standing before the assembly, raised his staff high, reminding them of the God who had parted the waters. "Fear not. The Lord shall fight for us," he proclaimed with unwavering conviction. "Remember your deliverance. Trust in the Lord's power and might." And so the people resolved to stand united, recalling the swift hand of God that had worked their salvation. Filled with courage, they joined Moses as he led them forward, knowing that their journey into the promised land had only just begun. As on each new day, the sun set upon the camp of Israel, and with it, hope blossomed anew in their weary hearts. "For not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit," the Lord reminded them softly, echoing through the sands of time with an urgency that could not be contained. Yet as resolute as they were, a divine question loomed: would their hearts remain steadfast in the face of trials yet to come? Would they entrust their future to the unfathomable wisdom of the Almighty? Thus, the echoes of their journey of faith reverberated, a pathway leading the people onward toward an uncertain but promised horizon, igniting an expectancy of God's glorious assertion yet to be revealed. As the Israelites journeyed through their wilderness, the days turned into weeks, and mirages of past comforts flickered before their tired eyes. Yet, beneath the weight of their trials, the Lord had woven a golden thread of promise into their journey, a reminder of his unfailing mercies that would triumph over despair. At the encampment near Kadesh, doubts resurfaced as the people again murmured against Moses and Aaron. "Why have you brought us up from Egypt to die in this desert? There is no bread, no water, and we loathe this worthless food." Numbers 21:5, their familiar cries echoed, a haunting remembrance of their fears, yet the Lord spoke to them again, his heart heavy with love for his wayward children. "Gather before me," he commanded. "Tell them to consider the rod of Moses, for it is a reminder of my power and presence." As they assembled, the air around them electrified with divine expectation. With renewed faith, Moses lifted his rod, standing firm against the tide of doubt. "See the salvation of the Lord," he declared, and water gushed forth from the rock anew, refreshing them in wondrous abundance. The waves of ore rippled through the camp as they drank deeply, quenching their thirst. "The Lord is our provider," they exclaimed, hearts rekindled with hope. Yet, even amidst God's bountiful provision, temptations loomed on the horizon. The Amalekites struck, seeking to rob the renewed faith of the Israelites. Yet, fortified by their recent experience of God's grace, the Israelites stood resolute. This battle would not go unanswered. Moses summoned Joshua once more, giving him the leadership of the army. "Tomorrow, I will stand on the hill with the staff of God in my hands." And so, as the battle raged below, Moses climbed the hill, the staff raised high. While his hands remained steady, the Israelites prevailed. But when fatigue overtook him, the tide shifted, and fear began to creep in. Aaron and Hur rushed to his side, supporting his weary arms, and with that act of unity, victory was secured, teaching the people the profound truth: together they rose, together they fell. The altar that Moses constructed after the battle was inscribed, "The Lord is my banner," marking the day when fear was vanquished by faith in the living God. Each victory brought the reality of God's faithfulness into sharper focus. The lessons of the wilderness began to pierce the depths of their hearts. Not only had the journey drawn them from slavery into freedom, but it was forming them into a nation, called to be a light unto the world. The days turned into months, and as they journeyed closer to the promised land, the vibrant colors of hope began to paint their hearts anew. Yet still, they battled the shadows of despair and the lingering effects of captivity. At last, they reached the plains of Moab, poised before the flood of Jordan, gazing across into the land flowing with milk and honey. As Moses addressed the assembly at the brink of this new chapter, his heart boldly echoed the words of the Lord. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Deuteronomy 6 verses 4-5. The people absorbed each command, feeling the weight of their covenant anew. In that moment, a seed of grace took root. This journey had not been merely about entering a land but establishing a people, set apart for divine purposes. As Moses prepared to ascend the mount one last time to be received into glory, he reminded them, "You are not alone. The Lord will go before you, he will fight for you." And as Moses departed, he looked back on the people, the torchbearers of promise, hearts soaring in faith. Through trials and tribulations, they had grown and transformed. Their history would not merely reflect a journey through the wilderness, it would become a narrative entwined with God's unwavering faithfulness and redemptive love. The promise was near, standing just across the river. The Israelites, emboldened by the trials that forged their faith, were no longer a mere assembly of former slaves, but a covenant people destined to shine brightly in a world longing for hope. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, shrouding the camp in a holy glow, the Lord's promise lingered in the air, reverberating with the assurance that his plans would not falter. A new beginning awaited. The journey of faith for Israel had begun, echoing through generations, intertwining with the redemptive path of humanity, calling all to trust in the God of deliverance, who beckoned, "Come, seek my face, and you shall find life in abundance." Embrace your own journey of faith, dear friends, for the tapestry of God's love weaves through your lives just as surely as it did for his people. Don't wait even one more second to surrender your doubts and embrace the promises that await you. Do not forget to subscribe immediately to our channel to stay connected to these powerful biblical stories. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, and comment with your reflections and how this incredible journey of faith has impacted your life. And share instantly this message with at least 5 friends who need to hear about God's truth and unwavering love in their lives. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth and ignite hope in others.